Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon and my 12 days of Christmas. Today I'm going to be talking about my top 12 roll and write games. This also includes flip and writes, anything kind of in that general genre. So let's get started. Coming in at number 12 is Imperial Settlers Roll and Write. So this is a roll and write version of Portal Games' very popular Imperial Settlers game. So this one has a very fun box insert for rolling the dice. Also has a nice little player aid in there. But this one, you're basically going to have these sheets with buildings on them that you can cross off and build a certain number of them throughout the game, as well as you're going to be checking off these rows and columns on the sheet rows and columns on the sheet on the far left. The more you cross off in a row, the more victory points you're going to get. Essentially, you're rolling out 4 dice at the beginning of every round, and one of those dice is going to give you the number of actions that you can take. And then the other 3 are resources that you can use. Now there's ways to get into those like lower fields on the sheet on the left to kind of always have a resource there to cross through. That's something you can accomplish. Everybody's going to get a little bonus card. That's those cards along the bottom with the little pencils on them. Sometimes, especially playing solo, you can get really burned by a poor roll of that one die that tells you how many actions you can take. But what's really nice about this game for playing solo is that it comes with a whole set of unique kind of scenario sheets almost. I think it's like close to 50 that you can play a different one each time. These are roll and writes though. I honestly don't know if they're printable out. So basically once you play one, then you kind of can't play it again unless you do a really good job of erasing. Anyways, this is essentially an engine builder and a roll and write. Number 11 is Rolling Realms by Stonemaier Games. Now this one is a little self-serving. I believe you can download it for free and do your own print and play. This was developed by Jamie Stegmaier, who is the owner of Stonemaier Games, during the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic. And what it does is each one is like a little mini game, essentially, that is focused around or fashioned after one of the famous Stonemaier games. So there's a little viticulture mini game. There's a My Little Scythe one, Between Two Cities, Wingspan, and you're attempting to just kind of complete as many of them as possible to earn stars. That's really all it is. There are, I believe, expansion packs. I've not really ever seen one, but I've heard of them. I've heard of like a Terra Mystica promo pack, so I don't know if that gives you an addition to the sheet to draw on or some more of these cards to do the little mini games on. I'm not 100% sure. But I did do the print and play version back when he was introducing it, and he would do like these kind of live playthroughs where he would roll the dice and everybody that printed one out along could play along in. It was fun. It was pretty unique. And if you are a big fan of Stonemaier Games, then this one would be right up your alley. Number 10. Number 10 is Catan the Dice Game, or Catan the Dice Game. This is a much older one. This is one of the originals, I think, roll and write games, and it is a roll and write version of Catan. So in this one, there is really just these dice and this pad of paper, and that's it. Very simple, very straightforward game. You are essentially rolling out the dice, and then it's a Yahtzee style where you can decide to keep a certain number and then re-roll them again up to 2 times, and then you're using those resources to build, your roads, your settlements, workers, things like that, and you try and build as many as possible in a certain number of rounds, and then that's it. Very simple, very straightforward. I played this a ton way back in the early 2000s when I was introduced to Catan, but then realized I couldn't play by myself. And so all those times that I was like, ooh, I really have this itch to play Catan, I ended up picking up Catan the Dice Game so I could scratch that itch while I was waiting to get back to the group to play, a 5 to 6 player game of Catan. So this one is definitely older, but if you really love Catan, go check this one out. Number 9. Number 9 is Gone Sean Clever, which translates to That's Pretty Clever. The one word I could use to describe Gone Sean Clever is combos. Combos, combos, combos. And not the little snacks, but comboing, point gathering opportunities. So this is it. You are looking at essentially the game. There is this sheet on the left and then one of each of these colored dice. There's nothing else to the game. I think the game comes with markers. Essentially, you're going to roll out your dice and you're going to choose one when it's your turn. And anything that's lower than that gets put onto this little tray, and that tray is then kind of community property for people to use. Well, you then will take any left over and roll them out again, choose one, and you can hold up to 3 dice. That's those spaces in the upper left of the sheet. That's where you place your dice, and then once you've chosen them all and done the rolling phase, then you go through and start marking stuff off. So you definitely don't want to pick a 6 right off the bat, because then everything else, unless you rolled nothing but 6s, is going to go onto the tray, and then you don't get any more dice. So you want to kind of pick low early and then hope you roll high near the end. Anyways, after that, then you're basically taking whatever color the die is that you set aside and going to that part of your sheet and filling things out. And basically, as you complete rows or columns or diagonals or things like that, you're going to be able to X off something else in another area, and so things can just kind of combo and continue comboing, bam, 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 bam. That's really it. That's all there is to it, but it's very satisfying to get those combos going. Number 8. Number 8 is Fleet the Dice Game. Fleet the Dice Game is easily the heaviest roll and write, at least easiest on this list. We're going to see another one that people call pretty heavy, but I find to be pretty straightforward. Anyways, this one has like multiple phases. There's like a boat phase where you're rolling out boat dice and you're choosing which kind of boat you want to increase, and so that's these columns at the top of the sheet with like, are you doing a lobster boat or a swordfish boat? And so as you increase those columns, you're going to gain licenses, which give you like bonuses when you do certain things, or it's going to give you additional boats, so it increases the size of your fleet. So when you actually go fishing, there's just that many more boats out there. And then there's like a town phase where you can take your income and spend it in the wharf to gain like victory points and things like that. It would take me too long to try and explain the full measure of the game. Like I said, this is a very heavy roll and write. It has this like fishing kind of, almost not really Le Havre-esque, but there's a harbor involved, and that might be the only difference. But it also has a solo mode. Solo mode is interesting because it's not necessarily just blocking you, but it's like taking away your spaces from the bottom up. So it may like start marking off the bottom few spots of your lobster boat column, and that way you never have the ability to get to that lowest or highest tier, I guess, on your lobster boat. So it's interesting how the AI works against you in this one. I don't know if I've ever really quite seen that done anywhere else, but that is Fleet the Dice Game. Number 7 is Silver and Gold. Silver and Gold is a pretty easy to teach game, almost is a party game. All of the cards in this game are dry erase, and there are these 8 cards with the tetra shapes on them that are just blank. And you're going to shuffle up those 8 cards, and then you're going to have a big stack of these cards with the islands on them that have the victory point values, but also there's colors and bonuses on them, things like that. So everybody's going to be dealt 2, and then there's going to be a row of what you can choose from. Once you start completing islands, you then are going to draw from that row to just keep going. The objective of the game is to take whatever polyomino shape that is drawn out of those basic playing cards and X through that shape on your island. And everybody's island is slightly different, so not every shape is going to work for everybody else. When you have filled up an island, you then put it off to the side because you've scored that island, and you can grab a new one. And you basically go through 4 rounds of going through. You flip over like 7 of the shapes. You never flip over the last card. So 7 times 4 is 28. So it's like 28 rounds, essentially. When you flip over things like, what do the coins get you? The coins get you something. The X's get you the ability to put an X anywhere else. They look bad, but they're not. The trees allow you to score your tree and any other tree you can see in the row, but you can only do that 4 times. And so yeah, it's a very quick playing, easy to teach, tiny little box game. So yeah, if you're looking for something like that, this was a great place to start. Number 6. Number 6 is Railroad Ink. Now that cover and most of these pictures are from the Deep Blue edition. I think there's like 5 or 6 different editions. The only thing really different between the editions is the 2 blue die, for example, you'll only find in the blue edition. And that's more for an advanced variant of the game. The base game only uses those 4 white dice. Now the 4 white dice on them have, you see like the blue one is for like adding in rivers and bodies of water, I think. So in just the basic game, you're just going to roll out those 4 standard white dice, and it's going to give you pieces of either a road or a train track. And what you're trying to do is draw on your little dry erase map with the, it's got a little kind of player screen so other people can't see what you're doing, but you have to start at one entrance and then start connecting as you go along, and always touch something you've already built. And then you're just trying to connect as many exits as possible using the dice that you have rolled. And then there's a whole line of kind of special faces that aren't going to appear on the die, but there's 6 special things you can add in, but you can only use each one once, and you can only use one once per turn. So it's really just kind of like a logic puzzle in a way. This is one that my copy of Railroad Ink is a print and play copy. You can download the the scorecard for free, and I started playing this during the pandemic. I would get a Zoom call going, and I just created my own dice. I copied and pasted, or white stickers and drew the patterns onto some plain white dice, and I would roll those out and have that on, my FaceTime or whatever, and everybody else would mark on their sheet. So I've never actually owned a real copy of Railroad Ink, but it worked. It worked really well to play over Zoom and FaceTime and things like that. But yeah, that is basically Railroad Ink. Number 5. Number 5 is here, Welcome to the Moon, but I'm also lumping in Welcome to. My original ranking, I had them separated, but once I was done ranking them, I actually had them side by side. So I was like, well, that's silly to talk about Welcome to and then talk about Welcome to the Moon. So I combined them together. So in both of these, you are essentially flipping over. This is a flip and right. You're flipping over a certain number of cards, usually 3, and you need to pick the symbol off of one of the cards and then the number off of the other. So in Welcome to, those symbols are going to be like fences or pools or what else was there? Parks, mailboxes, stuff like that. Or it was a number, and basically almost all of the Welcome to versions, you're trying to rank your numbers from left to right. They have to be in order. You can skip numbers, but you can't go like 1, 2, 5, 12, and then 3. Your 12 has to be at the end, or 15 I think is the highest number, and 1 has to be at the other end, and all the numbers in between. Now there's times where you can put a line and say, all right, I'm breaking this one off, but the longer stretch you can have of house numbers in Welcome to, and then in Welcome to the Moon, they all mean different things, the better. Welcome to the Moon just takes everything Welcome to was very successful with and just adds a little bit more complexity and variety to the game. There's actually, I think it's like 6 to 8 different sheets to play with. They're all now dry erase sheets instead of pads that you write on, and they all use the same deck of cards but in a different way, and it's almost like this little campaign you play through where they slightly change up the scenario a little bit. So as long as you know the kind of how to play Welcome to, you pick up on everything that Welcome to the Moon is trying to get you to do pretty quickly. Number 4. Number 4 is Super Skill Pinball 4Cade. So I've actually already talked about Super Skill Pinball in some of my other videos, and especially solo, because this is a game that technically you can play up to, I think, 4 players, but it really isn't like regular pinball. It's really kind of just a solo game. But this is, everything is dry erase, and you are rolling dice, and you have to use one of the number. You roll 2 dice, and you have to use one of the die and move your ball, which is just like a flattened silver disc you can see there in the picture, onto one of the objects on the pinball board. Score whatever might be there, and sometimes you can stay, if you're up in like the bumpers, you can stay up there as long as you roll the right numbers, but usually gravity is going to take you in your next roll. You're going to have to go further down the table until you get to the flippers. You'll mark off a certain number on the flippers that you can't use then again, and then shoot it back up. It really just works. It's actually an amazing simulation of a pinball game in board game form. Again, you're rolling 2 dice, that's the roll part, and then Xing out things on the board, crossing through VP stars on the back glass. And really, this one, again, works super well for individuals. They have the original game, and then they have Ramp It Up, where you can see here the biggest picture is from Ramp It Up. The artwork definitely improved. The themes got kind of crazy. Then they went and made a Star Trek one that's around like the various movies, the old school movies and the new school movies. And then the most recent one, which is my favorite, is the holiday one, because it's Elf, Christmas Vacation, and A Christmas Story. And I've really been enjoying those this time of year. So yeah, that's pinball. Number 3. Number 3 is Cartographers. This one easily used to be my favorite roll and write. So simple, so straightforward, so easy to teach and play. Played it a ton during the pandemic. Let's get into it. So Cartographers is a flip and write. You're going to be flipping over cards that have a polyomino shape to it, but also that shape is going to have a specific terrain type. So it's either going to be like farming fields or water or trees, or what's the last one? Oh, housing. A housing area. And you have to put that onto your sheet in some form or fashion. And what you're attempting to do is score as best you can based on the cards that are up above you there. So in the first round, you're going to score with the A and B cards. So you're scoring on basically diagonals and how your water and field spaces are touching, looks like ruins, icons. But then the next round, it's B and C, and you're completely ignoring A. Well, then in the next round, it's C and D. You no longer care about diagonals for the rest of the game. So it's really interesting how your focus changes from round to round. And it's amazing. Everybody gets the same card. Everybody usually has the same board in front of them. But it is amazing to see how different everybody's sheets are at the end of a game. This is another one that I played a ton during COVID, because you can just print out the sheet, and as long as somebody had the deck of cards, that was me, I would just put the cards under an iPhone, flip them over, everybody could see them, and then we all just drew on our own sheet. I really like this one picture I found. I realize it's not a English version of the game, but it just shows how creative people can be with the game, and how they're drawing, certain artists, or if you're an artist, you really take to this game, how creative people can be. I've seen some really amazing copies of people's game when they're done that you almost feel like should be hung on a wall. Anyways, this game is really easy, pretty quick, Has a great board game app. If you haven't seen my list top 12 of board game apps, this one's definitely on there, so go check that out. That's Cartographers. Number 2 is Dinosaur Island Roar and Write. So Dinosaur Island Roar and Write came out at the same time as Dinosaur World. Dinosaur World was supposed to be the successor to Dinosaur Island, and then Dinosaur Island Roar and Write was supposed to take Dinosaur Island and it turned it into a roll and write. Frankly, I feel like this one was the most successful. Dinosaur World just didn't quite hit it for me, but I love this version of Dinosaur World. It does everything. I feel like I get that feeling of playing Dinosaur Island. All the artwork is the same. It's got that kind of 80s neon look to it. It's got the same chunky like DNA dice. They're different. You can't use the same ones, but you know, you're essentially building out a park similar to Railroad Inc. You're like drawing buildings into a portion of one of your sheets, trying to connect entrances and exits to the park. To score goals, you're trying to build up excitement, obviously gain DNA to then build dinosaurs, but building dinosaurs creates danger, and if you have too much danger in your park, people start to die, blah, blah, blah. This game just really works. I was so surprised at how awesome this game was, and with the implementation of the companion app that they have, which essentially takes away the sheets, so you could use your phone or iPad as your sheets, so you don't have to waste paper drawing if you wanted to go that route. Honestly, if you just took the dice with you somewhere, you could play this game with just the dice and the companion app. Now, you need the dice, you need to purchase the game, so you shouldn't feel bad about doing that, but it's a great way to travel with it. So yeah, if you are a fan of the Dinosaur Island series, or essentially, you know, Dinosaur Island was pretty much a worker placement game / engine builder. This one is not worker placement, but for a roll and write, really hits it home for Dinosaur Island fans. And number 1 is Hadrian's Wall. This is by technically by Garfield Games, but not by Shem Phillips or S.J. McDonald. This is by a different designer than who we know to have created like the West Kingdom trilogy and the North Sea trilogy and so on. So Hadrian's Wall is easily behind Fleet the Dice game, and some may disagree with me, may think it's more complicated, but easily one of the more complicated games on this list, if not the second most complicated game in my opinion. When you put the sheets down in front of you, there's 2 pads of paper and you set them down in front of you, you're like, there's so much going on here. How am I ever going to rein this in and understand? But what you're essentially doing, Hadrian's Wall is actually a real thing. After I fell in love with this game, I actually researched the actual wall in England and everything about it. But you're tasked with building up the wall and then like the city behind it, improving the city behind it. Because each round, at the end of each round, invaders are going to come attack your wall and may give you negative points if you're not protecting the right areas of it. Since it's so long, you have like a left section, a middle section, and a right section. Anyways, at the beginning of every game, you're going to flip over these cards that you can see with the little meeples on it, and you're going to gain those colored meeples. You're also going to gain a certain number of meeples based on your engine that you've already built, so you may get a certain number at the beginning of every round once you get your engine going. And then you're going to use these meeples to take actions. So you may, for example, take a yellow meeple to go up to the performer's track and cross off one of those banners. And if you cross off that first banner on the performer's track, you get a blue worker meeple. Well, then you can take that blue worker meeple and take him down and build him in the wall. And if you build up a certain section of the wall, you then gain a yellow meeple. And you can take that yellow meeple and take him over to the priests. And once you make it a certain way on the priests, now you can spend that same yellow meeple on a temple. I spoke earlier about Ganshan Clever being combos, combos, combos. This one is combos, but it's so much more satisfying in my opinion. how you can bounce from one thing to the next, and if you sit there and just kind of plan it out, sometimes you can have these amazing turns where you're like, all right, I'm spending this one meeple here, but that's getting me a meeple who I can spend over here to get me another meeple or another action. Sometimes it's just like a tag, but that tag still allows you to mark off something. When you have a good turn or a good round where you're just like comboing left and right and crossing stuff off way longer than you expected to, it is incredibly satisfying. This is technically a competitive game. There is a solo mode, which is pretty much a beat your own score, but I don't even care. The game is so satisfying to knock out those combos and see how good you can get across certain tracks and build up that engine. I don't even care that at the end of the game all I can do is compare my score. I don't keep track of my scores to even see whether I've done better than myself or not, because the game itself is just amazingly fun to play. Once you have read through the rules, it all makes sense. And the rule book looks intimidating at first. I mentioned this in my how to play video, but really the rule book just goes into so much detail on every single section that it's almost overkill. But it's not bad. It's not a poorly written rule book. It's almost too well written of a rule book. You could easily get by with the Cliff's Notes of the Hadrian Wall rule book and still understand how to play. But the rule book, if you read it word for word, you are definitely going to know how to play. And then from then on, you pretty much have it. It's pretty straightforward. So this is, at least at the moment, my top roll and write game. And really, it's really just kind of like a flip and write game. There's definitely writing to it. You're definitely writing on the pads, and they're not reusable. But just flipping over a card, and that's going to give you your meeples for the round, and then you just go from there. That is going to do it for my 12 Days of Christmas list. This was for roll and writes. Let me just check here. There was only one game that I didn't mention, and that's because I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I haven't had a chance to pick it up, but that's Zombicide Gear Up. I'm looking forward to that one because I'm a fan of the Zombicide series. I just haven't been able to play it yet. So somebody was like, hey, why didn't you put that on the list? That's why I haven't gotten to it yet, but hopefully in the next year it's something I will feature on the channel. Other than that, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section below, or any comments, please keep them clean. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you are enjoying this series, please consider subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.